or you have two sides and this angle, then you want to find this. But regardless, this can only be used when you have 3 out of the 4 things you need. In our problem, we only have one of the sides, which means both sides are unknown, which means we don't know either of these, which means we cannot use the law of cosines. Are there questions about that logic? We cannot use the law of cosines. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 variables. We only know 2 of them, 1, 2. Because there are 2 that we don't know, we cannot use this equation. We must therefore use law of sines. How do we use law of sines? The law of sines says A, side A divided by sine of angle A equals B divided by sine of angle B, which equals C divided by sine of angle C. So let's put that into practice. So call this side C. Why is this C? Because this is the biggest side. Why is this the biggest side? Because it is across from the biggest angle. So this is equal to C. This is sine of angle C, which is 89. And that's equal to, you can call this B if you want, over sine of 62.3. And you don't have to worry about the third fraction yet. Just find B first, then you can go to the third fraction. Right now you just want to find B. And B in our case is, put a small b there, D. 1. Yeah. So we call this C. It really doesn't matter which one's what you call what, but I tend to use this as because the biggest side, because it's across from the biggest angle. So I call this C. So this is right here. Then divided by sine of the angle. Here's the angle. Then that equals B, some other side, I don't know it yet, divided by sine of that angle. Sine of that angle. And now I'm going to solve for B. The important piece is we need to be in degree mode for this. This is the only time in the class we'll ever use degrees, when we're doing law of cosines and law of sines. So you'll need to switch back to degree mode and click make default for these problems. So, how do we do this? Well, on our calculator we can find sine of 89 degrees, which is 0.999848. So this right here on the bottom is 0.999848. B is just B, we don't know what that is yet. Sine of 62.3 is, again on my calculator, 0.885394. Cross multiply. So 0.999848B equals 12.1 times 0.885394. This is just the number, and then you want to divide by 0.999848. Divide by 0.999848, and you find B equals 10.626, is that right? Yes. No, slightly wrong. I apologize. I typed in 12 instead of 12.1. Nope, so the answer is 10.714. 10.715, if you want to call it that. So that is how big side B is. And remember, B was, really D. Eugenia? No, you can do this actually all on your calculator without like writing all this stuff down. You can just write it on. Brianna? to 3 decimals. So now that you have this, you can do the formula just again to find this side. We won't do that right now. Are there any questions with how to do this? Okay. Let's move to the final piece. So one last thing I want to do. I want to do problem number 1 right here on page number 8. Want to do problem number 1 on page 8 about Miami, Nassau, and Bangor. So, let's draw the picture here. So here's Miami. And Miami goes over here to Bangor, which is in Maine, at a distance of 2350 kilometers. Miami to Nassau. Nassau is a place in the Bahamas. (295), and then Nassau to Nassau to Bangor, 2323 kilometers. And their question is, what bearing should the flight go in if it's going from Nassau to Bangor? Well, Right, no, it does. We can work through it now. This would be a 90-degree angle right here, if I was going straight north. Unfortunately, I'm not going to go straight north. I'm going to go at this angle. I'm going to go a little bit east. Rather than just going straight north, I'm going to go a little bit east. My goal is to find this right here. This is what we call the bearing. The bearing is how many degrees east or west of north do I fly? Or how many degrees east or west of south do I go? Okay, well now I can say the following. If I could find this big side right here, if I could find this big angle, then I could just subtract 90, which is here, and I would be left with the bearing. So the question is, how do we find this angle? Well, we can use law of cosines. The reason I'm going to use law of cosines here is because I know all three sides. I just need to find that angle. And in fact, I need to just find the angle across from the biggest side. Questions before I go through the math? So the math will go as follows. Remember, the law of sines is c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2 times a times b times cos of big C. So c squared, 2350. C, remember, is the side opposite the biggest side. Don't call it the hypotenuse. And that equals a, 295 squared, plus b, 2323 squared, minus 2 times 295 times 2323 times cosine of c. And the reason I put this like double line is to indicate this is an uppercase letter. So now I'm going to do 2350 squared on my calculator. And I get some really big number. That big number is equal to all this. I'm going to do this on my calculator, square and then add it, and then I'm going to subtract this green on this side. So subtract the green on both sides, because my goal is to isolate the variable. So what I get when I do that, and you can maybe verify, I get this. There's a negative up front. Yeah, negative from here. I'm now going to multiply all of this and then divide it. So I can get the cosine C by itself. Remember, because the goal is to isolate this. So and what I got was negative 0.028562 Before I do the final step, let me take questions. Fix 6. So in words, this is saying what angle has a cosine value of negative 0.028562. That's what we're asking. What angle could I put here? What x value, if you want to think of this as y equals cosine of x? I gave you the y coordinate. I want you to tell me the x coordinate.
I have a question.
Yeah, Bren.
I got a ton of this 391.
Did you square this 295? And you squared 2323? And you added those up? And then you did 2350 squared? You don't need degrees yet. But you will. No, because we haven't put any angles in yet. Did you get it, Brianna? Cynthia, you want to look on, help out? You got it? What did you say, Cynthia?
Is it supposed to be in degree or range?
I mean, you will need to be in degrees, but that will not affect your ability to get this number. This is just pure computation. So let me finish up here and then I can troubleshoot. So we're asking what angle has a cosine value of this? That is exactly what we meant when on last Friday we did this. If you remember, last Friday I said this translates in English to what angle from 0 to pi, domain restriction, has a cosine value of this. We gave you the y coordinate. We asked you for x. On the homework due on Thursday, you have problems like this where it's inverse cosine of 1/2. Everybody in here will write pi over 3. This is just a number that is not on the unit circle. That's all there is. So that's why we need to use the calculator. So we just tell the calculator inverse cosine of negative 0.028562, and we get 91.637. 91.637. And then remember we wanted the bearing, which means subtract 90 degrees, and you get 1.637. Why do you subtract 90? Because I'm not going north, I'm going a little bit east of north. So I'm going 1.637 degrees east of north. Questions? It's a real math.